Okay, sit yourself onto your left and then come into a good cross-legged position where you're feeling evenly placed on both seat bones. So starting in the same position just gives you that familiarity that we need to begin with, but it also brings us to the same spot so that we can just identify how the body is feeling today. So just sit yourself on your lift, hold onto your knees and elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down. Just observe the weight of the seat bones and then adjust if necessary. Just roll over, just move the buttock flesh back and out to the side so that you find this precise levelness of weight in the seat bones. Hold onto your knees and push against your knees so that you can really elevate the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. Just look down at the floor, look at something that isn't moving. Just focus on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying your lungs from the top to the bottom. Just focusing on softening the jaw, softening the tongue and the throat, and observe that when you soften the tongue you also soften around the eyes, around the forehead. So after you've been in cross legs for a moment or two, just reset if need be to just reallocate the weight distribution between the two seat bones. And then release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Maintain the lift of the chest that you achieved when you were pulling against the knees. Lengthen from the armpits into the elbows to give you space in the chest to expand into the armpit chest. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just focusing on filling the lungs evenly from the bottom to the top and emptying your lungs evenly from the top to the bottom. Just observing how the body is feeling this morning. Maybe it feels in need of a stretch. So obviously that is what we're going to do. With an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Lift the chin to meet the chest down to meet the chest, up to meet the chin down to meet the chest. And just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Gently hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. Holding the tip of the index finger with the tip of the thumb, stretching the other fingers away. And then with an exhalation, raise your head and allow your eyes to gently open. Just hold onto your knees, elevate the heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, just feeling how your body responds to the turn this morning. Observing how the seat bones, maybe they feel heavier on one side than the other. So just adjust the position of the torso so it's directly between the two hips so that the weight of the seat bones is even. Use your out breath to intensify the turn. Just turning with the chest rather than the neck, with the ribs, with the abdomen, trying to get the belly button to point at that right knee and beyond it. Come back to the center, hold on to your knees. Lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. Take a deep inhalation. And then with the exhalation, just turn to the left, drawing your abdomen, your ribs and your shoulders across, keeping the neck soft, using the exhalation to intensify the turn. Just observing how your body responds to the turn. Just acknowledging resistance. And intensifying the turn in association with that resistance. In reverence to the needs of the body. And then come back to the center. Just stretch out your legs. If you've got a belt handy, that will be useful. So just roll over, just move the buttock flesh out to the side and just free the backs of your thighs from the cushion that you're sitting on, or the blocks that you're sitting on, so that the backs of the thighs are free. And then just throw the belt around your feet, and then just look at how your feet kind of naturally extend. So if you extend from the hip into the heel, then maybe the little toe side of the foot extends further away than the big toe side of the foot. So maybe if you had your wet feet pressed against the wall, you wouldn't leave a perfect footprint, you just leave the image of the outside edge of the foot. So can you turn the shins inwards? Can you turn the fronts of the thighs inwards and then push into the inner heels? So the turn of the thighs really facilitates that inner ankle bone extending into the inner heel, extends into the big toes. Hold onto the belt firmly and lift the heart area up to the ceiling. As you try and elevate the heart area, feel how much you compress the shins into the floor. Breathing even and deep inhalations, turning the fronts of the shins inwards so that you feel the calf muscles broaden from the big toe side to the little toe side. So the front of the leg turns in, the back of the leg turns out. Push from the inner groin into the inner heel. Elevate the heart area up to the ceiling. And then gently release. So I want you to try and remember that activation of the legs, the fronts of the legs turning inwards, so that you're extending from the inner groin into the inner heel. That's quite an important action for the legs. Just come onto all fours. Have the little fingers on the edge of the mat, stretch the thumbs broadly towards each other, and then turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Be in dog down with bent knees to start off with. And then push the hands deeply into the floor. You need to engage the palms of the hands to take the weight away from the heels of the hands. When you take the weight away from the heels of the hands, it becomes lighter on the shoulders. And then elevate with bent knees, elevate the seat bones up towards the ceiling. And then begin to straighten the legs, tightening the kneecaps. And again, try and turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Try and turn the fronts of the shins inwards. Excuse me. I'm getting hay fever actually. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, the fronts of the shins inwards, and then lengthen from the inner groin into the inner heel. And then pick up the tailbone. Lengthen the heels away from the toes and try and bring the heels a little closer down to the floor, but all the time keeping the palms connected to the floor, keeping the fronts of the shins turning in. So when you turn the fronts of the legs inwards, again the heels will separate. And that's what we want. Breathing even, deep inhalations and exhalations. And then step your feet forward, come up into a standing position. And then have some blocks for your hands, and then bring your feet as wide apart as your mat. Lining the outside edge of your feet with the edge of your mat. So the toes are turning in. And then reactivate the legs, turning the fronts of the shins inwards, tightening the kneecaps, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that you can feel the backs of the legs broadening outwards. Have your hands on your hips, lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area up to the ceiling. Hands on the hips, wing the short elbows towards each other. Hinge at the hips. So you can outstretch your arms, of course. If you've got any kind of back pain, it's usually better to come forwards with your hands on your hips, winging the elbows back, projecting the chin and the chest forwards, and then reach down. Bring the blocks underneath your shoulders. And then activate your legs, activate the kneecaps, turn the fronts of the shins inwards, lengthen from the inner groin into the inner heel. From the inner groin into the inner heel. So it's not dropping the insteps, it's just trying to connect with that inner leg. Turning the shins inwards, turning the thighs inwards, lengthening from the inner groin into the inner heel, and then pushing the inner knees away from each other, lifting the inner knees up towards the groin. So it's lots of contrary actions. So keeping those legs straight, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can go down lower, then do just be cautious of your back. If you've got back problems, then just stay higher. You can come down to the floor. But when you come down to the floor, aim to keep the lowest part of the abdomen away from the tops of the thighs. So project, hit the thighs in one direction, lengthen the abdomen away from the legs. Even if it's touching, see if you can lift it away from the thighs. Turn the fronts of the shins inwards. Push the inner heels into the floor. Push the inner knees away from each other, lifting the inner knees up towards the groin, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. If you can come forwards a little more, you can reach around the backs of your heels, but again, aiming to keep the abdomen lengthening away from the hinge of the torso. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Keeping the legs dead straight. And then reaching forwards again, just putting your hands underneath your shoulders, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. And then just walking your hands towards the end of the mat, have your hands shoulder width apart, really place the palms precisely, and then step back, have your feet hip width apart. Come back into dog down. So let your head hang down. Breathe even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Listening to the breath. Just in this pose, just look at your feet, look at your heels. And if you just let the legs kind of do nothing, then the inner heels are probably not really doing anything. So turn the fronts of the shins inwards, lengthen from the inner groin into the inner heel. Push the inner knees away from each other. Lift the seat bones and the tailbone up towards the ceiling. Okay, and then step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position. And then come up into Tadasana. So just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Turn the fronts of the shins inwards. Tuck the tailbone in. Again, lift the abdomen away from the crease of the torso, where the torso meets the legs. Just lift up into the chest. Turning those shins inwards, lengthening from the inner groin into the inner heel, pushing the inner knees away from each other, lifting the inner knees up towards the groin. So that's a contrary action, isn't it? Can you find that levelness where both sides of the heel connect to the floor evenly? So it's not just the outside edge of the foot. It's not the inside edge of the foot. The centre of the heel makes really good contact with the floor. So there's that inner balance. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump your feet nice and wide for trikonasana. Turn your left toes in and your right leg and foot all the way out. Remember, if you got stiff hips, you can bring that front foot forwards beyond the toes, otherwise heel on instep. And then go back to the feet, spread the toes. So we're turning the legs for this pose. If you turn the legs in Tadasana, then it makes you want to do that. And you do those Tadasana legs when we're kind of coming over that way. But for these poses, we want the pelvis to face the front. So you turn the legs the opposite way around. You typically focus on the thighs, but again, just think about those shins. Rotating the shins from the big toe side to the little toe side. From the big toe side to the little toe side. So keep that focus on the shins. Push the feet into the floor, suck up into the hips, up into the chest. Stretch out into the arms. And then reach up. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, especially if you're feeling a bit bunged up. Helps to clear out the sinuses. Turn in the shin. Push in from the inner groin into the inner heel. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the centre, keep your arms outstretched, swap the feet around. Just turning the right toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out. Going back to the shins, turning them outwards, keeping the heels pressing into the floor, over, reaching up. Breathing in and out through the nose. And then come back to the centre, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together. Come back to Tadasana. Just observe because it's kind of hay fever time, isn't it? A little bit. Just a few warm days really, isn't it? But maybe you can breathe more clearly through the nose. So we're going to do parsvakonasana, which again is a good action for clearing out the sinuses. You might want a block where on either side of the back of the mat. Just make sure it's going to be somewhere that you're not going to jump on as you jump into the pose. So just have it where you can reach it. So just lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump your feet back together. Turn your left toes in, so you're a little bit wider than for trikonasana if you can. Right toes all the way out, left toes slightly inwards. And then this time, this back leg is going to stay straight. You're going to bend the front leg into a right angle. So again, don't forget about those shins. Turn the shin inwards. Sorry, turn the shin from the big toe side to the little toe side, so it's outwards, isn't it? Do the same with this shin. Really turn that shin outwards. Bend the front leg, keeping this back leg really firm. Find a right angle. Lift up into the chest. Keeping the chest facing the front, and then reach down. Find the floor or use a block underneath your hand. Turn the chest up to face the ceiling. Keeping those legs really firm, that back leg really firm, and then reach up and over. I run out of ceiling height a little here, but maybe you don't. Breathe through the nose, looking up underneath the armpit. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, clearing out the sinuses. And then straighten that front leg, come back to the centre. Swap the feet around, turn the right toes in a little. The left leg and foot all the way out. Just reset. Come back to the shins, keeping the shins lifting out of the feet. Find the right angle. Turn the chest up to face the ceiling and look up. Keeping that back leg really straight. And then come back to the centre, bring the feet parallel, and then step, jump the feet back together, and then come back up into Tadasana. Just observe how the sinuses feel a little more open. The more clearly you can breathe, the more energized you can bring, or the more energy you can bring into the body. So listen to the breath. Stretch your arms out, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hands, turn the palms all the way out, thumbs in contact, and then stretch up into asana. And then release. Just swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head again. And then gently release your arms, just again, just be in Tadasana, just observing your energy. And then just come directly down onto the floor and then sit yourself on your blanket, on your folded blanket. So sit yourself on the blanket and then just stretch your legs out in front. So again, you'll need a couple of blocks handy. You might need a belt handy, so have those where you can reach them. Let's come back into Dandasana, and again, just look at your feet. Do they do this, where the big toe side is closer to the body than the little toe side? So chances are they maybe do. And the first activation is to tighten the kneecaps, and then to turn the fronts of the shins consciously inwards. If you get a nail and just gently scratch your nail across the skin, so you feel that direction of movement, that can be quite helpful. Obviously, you don't want you to like kind of create marks, but just feel that turn of the chest, and then look at your feet. Maybe the inner edge of your feet are more consciously activated. Then lengthen from the inner groin and into the inner heel. And then have your hands at the sides of the body and then elevate the heart area up to the ceiling. Pushing into those inner heels, rotating the legs. And then bring your legs wide for upavistha konasana. So again, in upavistha konasana, this is why we're sitting on a lift, so that you can roll onto the front edge of the seat bones. So just feel that with your legs wide, you can then roll onto the front edge of the sitting bone. And then activate the legs, tighten the kneecaps. Now, in this pose, it's the same as trikonasana. We have to turn the leg inwards a little. Turn the legs inwards. Sorry, that's not the same as trikonasana. It's the same as tadasana. Turn the legs inwards. Turn the legs inwards. And then those inner thighs maybe have a little more activation. So turn the thighs inwards. Get hold of the belt. And then just get the belt so it's about shoulder width apart. And then pull firmly on the belt. Keep your arms straight. And then elevate your arms up to the ceiling, lifting the chest up to the ceiling, elevating the heart area to the ceiling. Pull on the belt firmly so that the arms really activate. If you can't straighten your arms, then go wider with the arms. Just breathing, even deep inhalations, turning the fronts of the legs inwards so you can activate those shins. And then release your arms. And then get your blocks, if you have them, and just have your hands on the blocks. Be on fingertips, lifting the front chest up to the ceiling. And if you've got a bad back, you might just want to stay at this stage, just pushing your hands into the blocks, lifting from the abdomen to the diaphragm, and then from the diaphragm to the collarbone. But if there's no discernible issues with your back, then maybe you can walk the blocks forward. You can bring the heels of the hands onto the blocks, push them down onto the blocks, lift up into the chest. So we start to gently come forward, staying on the front edge of the seat bones, turning those legs so that you lengthen from the inner groin into the inner heel. If you can come down to the floor, but lifting the abdomen away from the crease of the groin. Just a little bit at a time, coming forwards. And then just walk your hands back to the center so that you're lifting up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. Let's get your belt and put it into a little loop. So put it into a small loop like that, and then hook it around the foot. Keep that left leg outstretched. Sorry, that right leg outstretched. Put the belt around the right foot, and then bend the left foot. Point the toes like you're going to come into sirsasana. The top of the foot is on the floor, and then lift up into the chest. Push that foot. So have the belt around the ball joint of the foot, so the kind of the upper part half of the foot. Push the belt into the foot, and then lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. And then just a little bit at a time, maybe just see if you can hook your fingers inside the hoop. Then draw the abdomen across. So again, bad backs, just stay with a longer bit of a belt, lift up and just turn the chest outwards. You might be able to get hold of the big toe. So turn, holding onto the belt or the big toe, turning the abdomen up to face the ceiling. Keeping your left hand on your hip, trying to turn the chest. opening up the chest, looking up. Again, good, if you look upwards to the kind of left corner of the room, again, you get that space in the sinuses, just come back to the center. So you might just want to go there, or you might want to put the belt over your shoulder, and we're going to parivrtta, janu, sukhasana. So again, you reach over, get hold of the hook, or just stay hold of the belt, or get hold of the big toe, and then just come into that first stage with your top hand on you've got hold of that belt with that top arm, and then reach over, get hold of the belt, and then stretch it out, and then see if you can bend your elbow along the floor, and then see if you can perhaps stretch that arm down towards the foot, rotating the abdomen, looking up, breathing in and out through the nose. So reaching over, and then maybe you get hold of the heel with that right foot, you get hold of the big toe with the left hand, and then you really turn, breathing in and out through the nose. But we don't want this where the chest is facing the floor. We want to turn the chest to the ceiling. So wherever you can be, using the belt gives you much more space. And then come back to the center, and then just stretch out the legs in front, and then just come back into dandasana. So a fairly intense pose, but again, maybe your sinuses feel a lot clearer. So bring your legs wide apart again, and hook the belt around the left foot, and then bring that right leg in. So point in the toes, bringing the top of the foot onto the floor like you're going to come into sirsasana. And then just the first stage, just get hold of that belt. Draw the abdomen from the left to the right. Maybe get hold of the hook of the belt, turning and opening the chest. And just looking upwards. Maybe you can bend your elbow along that leg. So you might just want to, and then come back. So you might just want to stay at that stage, just opening up the chest in that way. Otherwise, get the end of the belt, hook it over the shoulder so you can reach it, get hold of the big toe or the loop, and then just start to turn the chest, and then reach up, turning the chest. And then bit by bit, just see if you can just shorten that distance between the foot and the chest, turning the chest up to face the ceiling. So one side, you might need the belt where you didn't on the other. Maybe you need more belt, less belt. Just observe. Push into that right knee, lengthen from the right hip into the right knee, that bent knee. And then gently come back to the center, and then stretch the legs out in front, and then pull the feet into baddha konasana. Just hold on to the feet. Hold on to the big toes. If that feels like it kind of makes you drop here, then slide the belt underneath your feet. Give yourself just a little bit of extra belt, and then elevate your heart area up to the ceiling. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. And then and release, and just come into cross legs. You can stay seated on the blanket, or you can move the blanket out of the way. Just bring the blocks to the sides of the hips. So we're just going to do sukhasana. Just again, a really good sinus clearer. Lift up into the heart area, elevating the heart area to the ceiling. Reach underneath the right knee with the right hand. Bring the elbow down onto the floor. Push from the shoulder into that elbow, and then from that elbow across into that left hip. So you get this triangle, and you're pushing that elbow into the floor so you can press that left seat bone really firmly down. So you're lengthening that left seat bone away from the elbow. Turn the chest. Look up to the ceiling. Look underneath the armpit and reach over. Turn in the chest. So it's the same action, but just more open as janu sirsasana, as parivrtta janu sirsasana. And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees. Just lift up into the chest. So we've done lots of side rib extensions. So maybe the sides of the ribs feel long. Reach underneath the left knee with the left hand, bringing that left elbow onto the block, the elbow underneath the shoulder, pushing that elbow into the floor, lengthening over to that right hip, and then really broaden the chest, broaden the abdomen, and then reach up and over, looking up underneath the armpit, just clearing out the sinuses. Keeping that right seat bone pressing firmly down into the floor. And then come back to the center. Lift. Hold onto your knees and lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards. So you can come into half padmasana if you can do it, or stay in cross legs. Maybe if you're in cross legs, you might want the blanket back underneath the seat bones. Just come into a position that feels comfortable. Hold onto your knees, and again roll onto the front edge of the seat bones, lifting up into the chest. So we can do a few rounds of brahmari pranayama, which again, it's all about the sinuses, this, isn't it? Brahmari pranayama cleans out the sinuses in seconds, whereas normally they are full of stagnant air which takes hours to circulate. So just close your eyes, just breathe normally, just normal inhalations, normal exhalations. Just filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom, feeling that the lungs expand evenly and the lungs contract evenly. Remember, brahmari is a hummed exhalation until the lungs are empty, followed by a normal inhalation. So when you're ready, take a normal exhalation, a normal inhalation, and then we'll do 4 brahmaris. It's just in your own time. just returning the breath back to a normal rhythm. Just observe the energy of the breath. Hold onto your knees, elevate your heart area upwards, just turn to the right side. And then come back to the center, hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, and then turn to the left. And then very gently come back to the center. Just come down onto your back, the blanket underneath your head. And then just take your glasses off if you're wearing them. Hold the sides of the mat, pull your knees in towards your chest, and then raise the legs for viparita karahni. Turn the fronts of the shins inwards. Push the tail, the sacrum area of the back down into the floor. Lift from the inner groin into the inner heel. Just long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. And then gently bend your knees. Just bring your feet back onto the floor. Just stretch your legs out. Just come onto your elbows for a moment. Just make sure you're in a good straight line right down the center of your mat. And then just allow yourself to completely release into the floor. Letting go of the legs and the arms, just unhooking the arms and the legs. Just allowing the body to feel weightless yet heavy. Just focusing on the weightlessness. Observing that feeling of energetic lightness radiating out from the bones and into the muscles, into the organs. To the flesh and the skin. Distributing that feeling of lightness evenly, using the breath down into the toes, into the fingers, up into the top of the head. basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Just bend your knees, bring your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then just very gently roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. Just resetting your energy. And then straighten out the top leg. Come back up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti. Just a final spinal lift. Just allowing the lungs to expand, but to draw the energy of the breath down into the abdomen. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends, the twists and the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spending a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside, and then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards, just connecting the tip of the index finger with the thumb. Lengthening the other fingers away from the palm of the hands. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel like you've really given yourself lots of good energy, but you've really cleared out your sinuses as well. So hopefully you feel good and positive for the rest of the day. Thank you very much for joining me.